CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success.
All right, welcome to a special edition of CMMS Radio, coming at you from Show Central at the NFMT East 2026 conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is the birthplace of NASCAR. I'm here with Andy Gager. He's with AMG International. And we're going to get into a conversation around a couple of the presentations he did here at NFMT this week. So, first of all, Andy, welcome to CMMS Radio and Show Central.
Yeah, good morning. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. We had a nice couple of HLMs. Those are high-level meetings last night.
Yep. Shout out to Mr. Latino.
Absolutely. Mr. Latino, godfather of the HLM. So I want to jump in right away when it comes to this concept of deferred maintenance that I think is often misunderstood, and some people have even considered it a strategy. Why is that dangerous?
Well, you know, it's that proverbial pay me now or pay me later. Or in most cases, it's pay me now or pay me a whole lot more later on, right? And every organization struggles with this. I mean, we have a certain amount of money in this bucket, and how are we going to spend that money and where are we going to spend that money? And so a lot of times that money is earmarked for this project over here, but then all of a sudden something else pops up, so we rob Peter to pay Paul, and in the meantime this project over here is then put on the back burner, right? And then all of a sudden the cost increase, or the degradation of the equipment, or we introduce more safety concerns. I mean, the risk by putting off some of this work is, in some cases, immeasurable.
Do you have any idea as to why it really happens and why leadership either does tolerate it or is forced to tolerate it?
Yeah, of course. So, look, I don't want to spend money if I don't have to.
Fair.
So if I can keep that money, you know, in a 2% savings account rather than spending it, heck, I'm going to cash is king, right? So it's sometimes a hard sell to leadership to you know, to part with that cash. So we have to build the business case, and again, it all goes back to risk, right? But it's a hard sell, and when we do sell it to leadership, we have to talk their language, which is money,
yeah,
and return on investment, right? Or, you know, risk mitigation or elimination, and, you know, all the things that go along with that.
Do you find when you're working with different organizations or trying to help people build that business case that leadership will still almost willfully ignore when they show maybe evidence of a past failure and what that's really going to cost if we defer this maintenance, and they still say, no, it doesn't matter, we're just not going to do it?
Sure.
It's common?
Sure. Yeah, I can't throw a number on there, but I would imagine, let's just say I've seen it.
Yeah.
Right. The frequency, not too sure about, but I've seen it happen. Right. You know, a prime example is, you know, when we moved to, you know, a suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina, there's a major highway that connects Raleigh to Durham, and 12 years ago they got approval from the North Carolina Department of Transportation to it's a 2-lane highway all the way, but it's a traffic jam in the morning with the traffic.
Right.
So they approved funding to divide that into a 2-lane highway, right? And then it got delayed, and then 2 years ago, it was cost prohibitive. It was you know, whatever it was, 600% more expensive. So what they do, they just repave the road. So they didn't relieve the congestion and the traffic, but somebody is sitting there feeling pretty good about themselves because, look, we repaved the road for you. What else you want?
Right. So, let alone without doing the proper mitigation to that traffic buildup.
Yeah, I mean, I literally book my flights around, you know, to avoid that traffic in the morning and in the afternoon because it's just the same coming back.
So the reality of deferred maintenance is it has a massive trickle effect to the other things that are impacted
100%.
around you, and it'll technically reach out to everywhere, that ripple effect, I guess we would call it.
So one of the questions that came up in the session was, you know, what happens if they continually say no, 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 no? And what I said was, okay, well, don't stop asking, or ask it differently, or break that elephant down into smaller pieces where it's easier to swallow. In other words, take a section out of that proposal for that deferred maintenance, and let's do maybe this little project, right? So incremental improvements, and then over time we'll actually get all that done.
So there is a strategy for deferred maintenance where you can say, okay, we are going to defer maintenance, but we're going to be selective. We're going to find where can we get the biggest impact and do some of this now, and kind of pick our poison as it relates to deferring.
What's most critical? What do we absolutely have to do right now? What's the minimum that we have to do to get by? All right, and then what's the phase 2, if you will, and then obviously further down the road, what's phase 3 or 4 or 5, whatever the case may be.
Do you think sometimes deferred maintenance happens on really big projects just because they're too focused on, well, you already said this, they're too focused on the spend. They feel like doing the right thing hurts them financially when it's usually backwards.
Or time, or resources. Right? So those are probably the big 3 I see.
What do you think of when I like to talk about CMMS and maintenance management and the software to be your historian and help you get these data points to make these decisions, build your business case, all that happy stuff. Does that play a role in how an organization can understand the impact of deferred maintenance? The utilization of a CMMS?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
How so?
How so? Well, how so? All right, how much time we got?
Yeah.
Look, we cannot make good business decisions based on emotion. So you have to bring me the data. We have to provide the data and the facts, right? And then the risks. So, we capture all those risks, right? And the consequence of the failure and things like that. We can calculate that, but that information directly comes out of our CMMS system.
Yeah.
So the information that we're feeding in, it's called data integrity, is the data that's going into our CMMS system, is it valid enough for us to make a right business decision? And timing as well.
So let's switch it up a little bit. So we talked a little bit about deferred maintenance, but now I want to mix in a little bit on leadership and supervision, because you did a workshop this week on that.
Yep, I did.
And it's a really critical topic. It's one of your more popular courses, workshops, sessions, if you will, and it seems to be a never-ending challenge when you're dealing with leadership or when you want to improve your leadership and supervision skill set.
Right.
So where do people start?
Where do people start to become a leader?
To become a leader, or to, improve their own ability to communicate with leadership?
Well, actually, you answered your own question. Communication. So, I don't know where you start. We can have leaders. You don't have to have a title to be a leader.
Right.
You don't have to. I mean, I've seen some incredible individuals that are leaders of their department, or they don't have the title, but they lead the other people, as they go. Now, starting out, very few organizations formally train new supervisors.
Right.
They just, Friday afternoon, you're a coworker. Starting Monday morning, guess what? You're now the department manager or supervisor, right?
Yeah.
Have at it. Right?
You don't know anything about the process.
And what I see very common, by the way, is a lot of those individuals still want to remain friends. They don't want to hurt, their coworkers, who used to be a coworker. They don't want to hurt their feelings, right? Or they don't want to. There's two things that I find with the new supervisions or new managers, what skill that they're lacking. One is how to motivate individuals, and the other one is how to delegate appropriately. Because, nobody can do the job as good as me, right? And then how do you motivate? We just think that motivation is do as I say.
Yeah.
Right? That's how we not, and then here's the other thing about that. People confuse money as a motivator. Money is not a motivator. Money is a stimulator. It's a short-term stimulator. Because if I give you a raise today, what are you going to be looking for 3, 4, 5 months from now?
Another raise.
You want more, as you say, more cheddar.
More cheddar.
Right? So that's not a motivator. It's a short-term stimulator to do a better job. But motivate is long-term motivation.
Another thing popped into my mind was this concept of micromanagement we all hate, and people fall into that trap of becoming a micromanager when they don't understand how to delegate properly, right?
Right.
How do they fix that? How does a micromanager break their own cycle?
All right. Well, we talk about this. So you're only as good as the talent that you surround yourself with.
Right.
And you have to, part of your responsibility as a manager or a supervisor is you wear many different hats. Sometimes you are a micromanager, you supervise. But then there's other times where you're a coach or you're a trainer or a teacher, right? And sometimes all you are is a consultant. And so therefore, to build the best group of talent around us, we have to have confidence in the people that we're hiring.
Right.
And then we need to nurture them and delegate so we can allow them to grow.
Do you think there's a common, I'm going to say bad habit, I don't know if that's the right way to put this, but a common tendency for leadership, supervisors, to stick with employees that weren't the right hires because they feel like it's easier to not have to go hire and train a new person?
Yeah, I call them the 10%ers.
Ah, yes. Let's talk about that a little bit for anybody that hasn't heard Andy's concept on that. So run it down. We got the
20, 40, 30, and 10.
20, 40, 30, 10. So teach us about the 20, 40, 30, 10.
All right. So it's every organization in the world. Every organization in the world is broken down into those four groups. 20%ers, 40%ers, 30%ers, and 10%ers. And the 20%ers are your superstars. Those are the top creme de la creme. Matter of fact, they could probably do your job, right? I mean, they're that good.
Yeah.
Give them a baked potato, rubber band, a paper clip, and by gosh, they can make a 12-gauge shotgun out of the thing.
Right,
I mean,
MacGyver.
They're that good, right? And then I got the next 40%, rock solid individuals. They're dependable. They do quality work, right? They come in, they do a good day's worth of work, but at the end of the day, they go home, they crack a beer and self-medicate.
Yeah.
I love that group, right? And then I got a 30%, the next group down that may be brand new to your organization or brand new to operations or brand new to maintenance, whatever the case may be. But, they're certainly not a 40%er and they're not a 20%er yet, but they got potential. You hired them for a reason, right? Now every group has got a 10%er. Every fiber in their body is negative. I'm the only one that does any work around here. I don't know what the rest of you guys do. I'm not getting paid enough. I should be the boss of this department, right? And then my dog got voted ugliest dog in the world, right? So it's like every fiber in their body is negative, but we as supervisors or managers, we spend about 80% of our time with those 10%ers with 0% chance that we're ever going to elevate them up in, highly unlikely you'll elevate them to the 40 or 20%ers.
Is there a tendency, why do they stick around? Why do the 10%ers stick around?
Why do the 10%ers stick around?
Yeah, why don't they get them out?
To make my life absolutely miserable. That's why they stick around.
Of course, but
that's why they stick around.
Why is it so hard to? Are they easy to identify? Because based on
they're very easy to identify.
Why do leaders and supervisors not get rid of them?
Because, let me answer it this way: the talent pool out there is incredibly shallow, right? And so there's a lot of organizations that will hire people, and in the interview process goes something like this. Yeah, you got a pulse. You're hired. Right? So, because they just need a warm body to do whatever, push a button all day long, right? Whatever. But a lot of organizations will suffer through the 10%ers just because they can't replace that person or just get a body in there to replace them. But as a good supervisor manager, you document, and get rid of them.
And then as far as the talent pool out there goes, I think
it's international, by the way.
Yeah, and then we're talking about the skilled trades. We're talking about people that understand these things, people that don't want to do this kind of work. How do we change that?
There's people out there trying really hard to try changing that. I do paraphrase a gentleman who I heard him say this a long time ago about trades. Do you want a job or do you want a career? And I understood what he said. I'm sure we all know somebody that's graduated with a 4-year degree in, early American English, right? All right, what do you qualify? Or late medieval art. I mean, okay, your career path is very slim. All right, But if you're a master electrician, right, or a mechanic and stuff, you pretty much have what we call a transferable skill.
Right.
So you can pretty much go wherever you want, and particularly these days. And you're getting, look, I've worked with guys making $250,000, right? I would love to make $250,000.
Let's get back on track with this overall concept of deferred maintenance when it comes to facilities. One of the things that pops into my mind is infrastructure, public sector, schools, it's even hospitals, healthcare systems, where we're in this range right now where there's 50 plus years of deferred maintenance, and there seems to be a trend towards public entities starting to focus on that deferred maintenance now and start doing a lot of work to bring buildings up to speed, up to modern times, fixing things. Are you hearing or seeing anything that is a real trend, or is it mostly talk?
All right, so we talked about this in my session, right? And the first or second slide in my presentation talked about what happened last spring, not this year, last school year, because it was all over the news. So I live outside of Raleigh, so Wake County is our school district, and it went on because we went from essentially from winter straight into summer.
Right.
And it was incredibly warm during the first couple of weeks of school. And every single day in the article, it was reading that 11 high schools closed early today because of HVAC issues, all right? And it went on and on. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 bullets that I had of them saying that, schools are closing early, or schools are on a, delay, or, early dismissal because of the HVAC issues.
Right.
And then it goes on. They interviewed the superintendent of the school district, and he blamed several different contributing issues. One was supply chain, long lead times, skill set. They only had 2 certified HVAC technicians to cover, hundreds of schools in the district. But then the other one was money. They didn't have a budget, and he estimated that they needed it was either $54 or $58 million to bring some of these HVAC systems back up, right? And it's just not, the money's just not there. And so how do you deal with that, right? So I'm seeing that more and more and more is school districts they don't have extra cash just sitting around. And by the way, the other thing, the next slide after that I showed was I wrote an article 2 years ago about the United States infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, we're crumbling. I mean, we are crumbling. Whatever, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my mind, but I'm talking trillions of dollars to rebuild our roads, rebuild our bridges, rebuild our water systems, right? It just goes on and on and on, rail systems, and it goes on. But you will never, ever hear, as a matter of fact, it's happening right now, you will never hear a politician say, vote for me because I'm going to raise your taxes because our infrastructure is crumbling. I mean, that's certain death, right? I'm going to raise your taxes because we got to rebuild our roads. But what do? We wait until we have catastrophic failures, and then miraculously we got the money.
Interesting, because that's the same thing that happens in facilities management, manufacturing, on
Just
and on
happened
like
in
this.
D.C. They just had an environmental release on that busted water pipe into the river. Huge environmental issue.
Right. So we find and spend the money when something breaks and fails. We don't find and spend the money when we could mitigate that failure,
which tends to be 3 to 4 times more expensive. So we should be telling the equipment or the infrastructure when we're going to take it down, because it's much more cost controlled that way versus let's wait until run to failure. Let's let it run to failure, then we'll deal with it. And it's typically more disruptive to the public. It's more disruptive to the school districts or to the facilities or the colleges, rather than let's bite the bullet, let's take care of it, because we know the consequence of the failure is great, and we clearly understand that we're going to have a failure. We're not exactly sure when. It could be next week, it could be next year, but it's in stone that we are going to experience a failure.
Do you think the lack of... Now, let me change that question. When it comes to us knowing that deferring the maintenance is going to lead to a much more costly failure, do the people that are in charge of gathering that money, providing those funds to do these mitigation strategies. Do they just not get it? They don't understand it, or do they not care? Do they not understand what maintenance really is and how that represents an investment in the assets and the infrastructure you have?
Can I ask GP Chat to answer that question?
Well, I prefer Grok.
Oh, all right, because I didn't study for that question. To be honest with you, I think it's just because we haven't, I don't think that if we get denied funding, I don't think we've done a good enough job developing the pain points and the business case of why we want to do this now. Because we have to learn, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Just to go on, we have to understand we need to talk their language. You know, managers and supervisors need to understand and clearly articulate senior leadership's language, and that language is money. That's what it is. It comes down to money. We can do all these other things. We've done a risk assessment on the facilities. We've done assessments on safety. You know, we've done all this other. We know the roof is going to fail. We already got leaks. We got barrels out here catching the leaks and stuff, right? But that's not their language. That's not their language. Their language is how much is it going to cost and what's my return on my investment.
Right.
So I'm willing to give you $1 because I want $10 back. I'm not willing to give you 10 because I'm only going to get 1 back. That's a no deal.
Yeah. Again, this is kind of a record on repeat when it comes to building the business case, talking the language of leadership or people with the purse strings, power of the purse, whatever you want to call that, and it just is an ongoing battle. Now, there's people here that are in facilities management. They've done all this. They deal with this on a constant basis. Show of hands, how often are you struggling with presenting your business cases to get the funding to do your maintenance instead of deferring it? So it's a constant. It really is. I wake up today might be the day I got to try again to make this business case. I've done it 12 times over the last 5 years, but you just keep trying. Where do people find the motivation to keep making that business case after being denied year after year after year?
Part of the business case is to highlight the pain points.
Right.
Right, and this is the reason why we need to make this change, because it would be considered a change, right? And people tend to be adverse to change, so they'll wait to the last minute, right, to spend the money. Like I said earlier, I want to keep that money. You know, cash is king. As long as we keep that in the bank. So part of that business case is we got to build the pain points of why we want to do this right now versus waiting.
Well, I think what I'm getting at is more around. We've got these great facilities managers, facilities directors, maintenance managers, and they really are trying to protect the organization, the facilities, the people in it. And if they get denied, they start thinking about leaving, and they might be really solid. And I'm wondering where they find the motivation to keep fighting the good fight.
Well, you know, again, going back to what we talked about earlier on, right? How do you eat that elephant? And you know, maybe we present, or you keep asking it. Maybe you keep asking different ways. You're asking the same question. You're just changing the words around a little bit, right?
Right.
But then if you continually run into a brick wall, like I said earlier, okay, let's take that elephant and break it down into smaller bites, right? And say, okay, and let's prioritize those, because not everything carries the same, you know, criticality or the same risk. So, you know, what is the highest, you know, likelihood of failure on the most critical pieces of equipment, or, you know, so forth. This is what we're going to do first, this is second. And that's how you propose it to the leadership, by the way. And the other thing is, when you do make these proposals to leadership, don't just give them one option. Don't give them just one option. They're going to want to know several options. Again, when I was a plant manager, right, don't come to me with your problems, because I'll solve it one way or another. I'll solve your problem. You may not like what I come up with, okay? But if you come to me with your problem and say, okay, this is what I suggest on how we address it, all right, that at least gives me an option on how to solve that. Same with the business case. If we come up with a couple different options, it might be a cafeteria style that they wind up doing. All right, let's take a little bit from this proposal, and we'll take a little bit of this, you know, maybe one of these things from this other proposal.
Right. So
and then we'll just meld them together.
Essentially, you're saying don't give up, keep trying.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Maybe even think outside of the box as to how you're presenting this, and don't get your feathers ruffled so much. Just keep going. Fight the good fight.
Yeah, but again, the reality is, if you get to that point, there's a lot of frustration, and at some point they're going to say, you know what, if it's not important to you, guess what? It's not important to me.
Do you have any stories
I'm out of here.
about situations you've been in where, like a story where you tried something really unique or different and got the approval to do something like that? Or have you heard any stories you can share?
Well, you know I got stories. I'm just trying to think of one real quick. Have I seen something like that? As far as deferred maintenance and getting it done?
I think we could go with deferred maintenance or almost anything maintenance. And if you don't have one of those stories, I'm going to switch it up to one I know you
Well, I got
know.
one in leadership.
Let's do that. Leadership story.
All right. So I was told to go, I was going to go work with a client, and I was told that the client was in Utah. And I said, all right. I've been in pretty much every state in the nation, but I've never been to Utah, so I can't wait to go to Utah. Well, because apparently I didn't hear the rest of it. It was Utah, Alabama. So Utah, Alabama has got like one traffic light, one diner. I think the police station, the fire department, and the post office were all in the same building, right? So I went there, and it was a manufacturing plant, and I was there on Monday, and I went to the staff meeting, and right from the get-go, you could feel the tension between the operations and the maintenance managers. And that was on Monday. Tuesday, they got into a full blown-out argument, screaming across the conference table at each other, right?
Yeah.
You know, if your operators didn't break the equipment, well, if your maintenance guys knew how, and I mean, I thought it was going to become the fisticuffs.
Yeah.
I really did. And that was Tuesday. Wednesday, the maintenance manager stuck his head in the room and said, I don't have time to attend this, and threw out a couple four-letter adjectives and so forth, and stormed back out. So on Thursday, and then Thursday, it was a little bit more calm, but you could still feel the tension between the two of them, right? So after that meeting, I went to the plant manager and I said, what's the story between these two? And he said, yeah, he goes, they oil and water. Matter of fact, they have to leave at separate times because they'll kill each other in the parking lot. And so then I'm sort of joking around with him, it'd be funny. Switch them. Make the ops manager the maintenance manager, make the maintenance manager the ops manager. And he started laughing. He's like, yeah, that would be pretty funny. What did he do at Friday morning staff meeting?
He switched them.
He had an organizational announcement, change announcement, and he switched them. And I'm not saying a word. Believe me, I'm not saying, like, hey, it was my idea, guys, to have you guys switch, man. There was no way I was going to do that. Besides, the maintenance manager guy was bigger than me, so I wasn't about to go down that road. So I wound up going away, doing my report, writing stuff, and 2 weeks later I came back, and I went right to this guy's office, and I said, so how's it working out? He goes, I switched them back. And I'm like, oh, well, what's going on? He's like, they're tight.
Wow.
He goes, they're working together, and he goes, all it took was for the other person to walk in the other person's shoes to understand what the real issues were going on. He goes, right now they're like, hey, brother, let's help each other out on this stuff, right? So I thought that now I'm saying, I did that.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, I'm the one who made that suggestion. No.
I wish more teams could do that, and I think they struggle based on their own need to stay relevant, to protect their own position, or maybe it's pride.
Well, all right, so let's go back to something you just said about the CMMS system.
Yep.
I've certainly worked with individuals that as long as that information remains between their sound receptacles, that's job security.
We were talking about that last night, too.
So as far as I know, we haven't perfected the Vulcan mind meld. And the only tool that I know that at our disposal to capture that knowledge, some people call it tribal knowledge,
Yeah.
is this thing called CMMS systems or work order systems. And that captures the history, the materials that we used, how did you disassemble, repair, reassemble, and capturing all that and putting it in that box so it's there for eternity.
I'm curious, show of hands for anybody that has a CMMS system in place, how often you use it for looking at these exact things. You and I talked about this the other day, and you went from the ground up with the whole process and learned everything. So how about you guys? Do you guys have CMMSs at your organizations? No?
Computer systems.
Yeah, they're just work order management, asset
CMMS
management.
is a computer maintenance management system. That's what that is.
Yeah. So you do have that. Okay, good. Well, I think, what I'm curious is if anybody has any questions, we got a mic up here. If you want to step up and ask anything about deferred maintenance, leadership, supervision, sports, weather.
weather. It's
Anybody?
raining outside.
All right.
All right.
Oh, wait. We got one.
I was just going to... Ooh, that's loud. I was just going to make just about CMMS and deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
It is my number one teaching tool for the people above my head who don't understand what I do.
There you go. There you go.
I have put a camera down a drain line that had a belly in it and explained to them this will happen again if we don't get rid of that. And they've been like, no, we don't want to dig up the parking lot. And I'm like, I can do this with no downtime. When it happens again, there's going to be downtime.
Yeah. Right.
No, we don't want to do it. It costs a lot of money. And then I can use my CMMS to then project out, okay, this is when it's going to happen next.
Right.
I mark it on the calendar. And I'll be like, I'm not going to be angry. I'm just going to be disappointed.
Did you say this is going to be a bad day?
This is going to be the bad day when it happens.
Right.
This is how much it's going to cost when the plumber comes out to clear it. And that will leave you back at the same situation you started in.
Exactly.
And when they didn't do it the second time and it happened on the day, I drew another X on the calendar and I said, here's a bunch. We'll flip over down the pages. I added it up across the year. Yeah. I said, this is how much you're going to spend in a year. And understand, I hand you the decisions. I tell you the consequences. They're not my consequences because I'm not the decision maker.
Right,
I'm the
exactly.
advisor.
You just got to feed them the information, right?
It's
up to them to...
I call it handing them the bag.
Yeah.
You hand them the bag, they don't like the risk and responsibility being theirs.
Yeah. So, because I also teach a reliability engineering class as well, right? I could predict failure. We can calculate the probability of failure on any equipment. And we can calculate that failure pretty close to your point. We can calculate that failure fairly accurately, right? And when that will. So again, here's the facts, here's the data that tells you based on the calculations it's going to fail, by May, right? So my recommendation is we take it down, pay the dollars now, because in May it's going to be 3 to 4 times more expensive for you. So you make the decision. I'm just feeding you the data, right? Yeah, exactly.
To have the car ordered and not have that lead time on it.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why you have a big FedEx fruit basket that comes in at the end of the year, because you guys pay for it. So.
Well, I wanted to chime in the way you described everything. Really important about maintenance. Maintenance, their job, their role in your organization is the conveyance of risk. And the way you described it was absolutely spot on. That's what maintenance does.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. And getting back to what you're teaching us, Andy, about how to kind of change up how you present it, you bring that data from your CMMS, you bring these experiential, validated outcomes that you've seen in the past, and you show those costs, and you've got a better chance of getting that approval, and then keep changing it up. But if you have a CMMS in place and you've got standardization and you're tracking all this stuff and you can see how things were done, you can build that business case and convey that risk even better, yeah?
Am I supposed to say yes at this point?
You can nod or say yes, but
Okay.
It's a podcast, so...
Absolutely, I agree with everything you just said.
Use your words. Well, look, everyone, this is the final day of NFMT East, and I want to first thank you for being here with Andy and I as we record this special episode of CMMS Radio at Show Central. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we're going to see you at NFMT East next year in Baltimore.
Back to Baltimore.
Thanks for hanging out with us here on CMMS Radio, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.